least there was a valid structure that was being used.
Yeah, he did that on the spot with Detroyer, and Detroyer accepted the conclusion, which is logic doesn't exist from his view.
Oh, but he accepted that before. If you just listen to that recording, he didn't even need to make the argument because Detroyer already said he didn't think that logic existed.
Yeah, but that
The argument was odious. There's no reason to give the argument. It's like giving an argument for a conclusion that you already accept.
How does he use logic if it doesn't exist?
How does one correctly reasoning if propositions don't exist? Right? Just think about what you're saying. I mean, even if they do exist, like imagine someone says that propositions do exist. Imagine someone thinks that the laws of logic are propositions. What does it mean to use a proposition in the first place? Right?
Aren't you kind of
like
just
that's just a turn of phrase.
But
he already explained making propositions. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, aren't you
he already
just making
explained
propositions in your head when you're thinking?
What do you mean by no?
You're not?
People don't make
Really?
How would something that doesn't exist
Can
be
you
true or false?
let Josh finish?
What do you mean? What does it mean for
On
something?
top of that, he
for
doesn't
trees
even he
exist?
doesn't even think concepts
Why are
exist.
you doing this?
So he doesn't even have a
Why are you
conception of
fucking
logic, but he uses it.
Look, if you nominalize, well, I wouldn't be a nominalist about concepts, but that doesn't show that nominalism is wrong. The point that Detroyer made is even brought up in that video, it addresses everything that you're already saying, which is that it might be useful to use terminology in a specific way, like for someone to say that they have a belief, even though they don't think that beliefs are like objects. They don't think that beliefs are mental objects or physical objects or objects of any kind, right? But it might still be useful to use that language just in everyday parlance. He already explained that, and he said it might even be difficult to sort of give paraphrases that give those accounts, without using that same type of language. So he already addressed all of this. So I don't even know why you're bringing it up.
So you don't think Detroyer thinks that logic has any essence whatsoever?
What the fuck does that even mean?
Or being? Any type of existence?
What does it mean for it to have it? Look, okay, like take it this way, right? Like you can have, there are two accounts that you can give for logic. Why am I even explaining this? You're not going to understand even a little bit of it. But there are two accounts that you can give
means in philosophy.
There are two accounts that you can give for logic, right? One account is a conceptualist account, and then you're going to have to deal with bootstrapping objections. The other account is a Platonist account. And if you give a Platonist account, that's not going to be friendly to theism, or at least it's not going to be friendly to any sort of precept or argument or anything that has to do with God's aseity, right? You can't accept Platonism and accept that God is ase, and you can't accept Platonism and think that logic in any meaningful way depends on God's existence, right? So you have to take a conceptualist route. Right, that's the only
No, I would reject Platonism outright.
But Detroyer said he doesn't even have a conception of logic.
He said he doesn't think concepts exist.
Yeah, so he doesn't have a conception if concepts don't exist, right?
That's just a paraphrase. No. I mean, like, I wouldn't necessarily sign off on his view or whatever.
Wait, he has a concept, but concepts don't exist?
That's just begging the question against what he said, right?
No, I'm asking you
the same way.
If he does or does he not, from his position, does he or does he not have a conception of logic?
Look, he has a conception, but that doesn't mean that concepts exist. It's just a way of, you're just taking this literal usage of the language and interpreting it uncharitably.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means to have a conception, but concepts don't exist.
In order to perform a reductio ad absurdum, right? But that's all you're doing is you're picking on language. Now you could say that you don't know what he means, and you might be interested in him giving some account.
Do you know what he means?
Someone could say we have.
You know what he means?
Just listen to me. Just listen. It's easy to paraphrase away something like that, right? So let me give you an example that you can understand. So an example is we have a process in place to do X, right? Now that doesn't mean that processes are things in the world that they're not objects. They don't have like an essence, or they don't have some sort of essential properties or anything like that. But you can still point to processes, and you can still use words like possessive. You could use possessive pronouns and things like we have processes in place for this and that. But that doesn't mean you're
When you
committed to
say
the
objects, what do you
existence.
mean? Are you talking about like external objects that have mass?
You don't have to.
Of course
I'm
they
saying that you
don't.
don't have.
They're of course they're not objects. That
Yeah, well,
doesn't
that's
mean
all
they
he
don't
thinks.
exist in any sense. That doesn't mean they don't
Well,
exist in any
look,
sense, right?
that was the only sense that was relevant for him saying that he doesn't think that they
Oh, so he
exist.
does. Are you
Like that's
saying
what
that
he was saying.
Detroyer does think they exist in some sense?
Not in the sense that you were using. If he says
In what
that, you can
sense does he
paraphrase it
think that
away.
they exist?
I don't know. Ask him his
Well, you're the
fucking
one
view.
defending
I'm
his
just saying.
position.
Look, if you say they exist in some sense, the point is that you're either equivocating on existence, right?
No, but
In
I
which
took
I was.
it to he's when he said they didn't exist, they don't fucking exist. And now you're
He
saying
was
that they do
saying
exist
that
in some sense, but you
he
don't
was
know what
saying that
sense
they're
they
not
exist in?
objects. He was saying that they're not objects. They're not composed of parts or anything like that, right? Those are the things that he was saying, which is the same thing he said about logic.
I took it when he said they don't exist, I thought he meant they don't exist. If you're saying he meant something else, then you can tell me what he meant.
Why don't you just
Well, he doesn't even
look?
think they exist
He already.
conceptually. That's
I
the
don't know.
problem.
I don't know what the account he was
He
giving me is,
doesn't
but I
think
don't need to
they're
know.
like objects
I
that
don't
have
need to
mass, and he
know
doesn't
the
think they're
account.
concepts. So what the fuck are they?
I don't. Laws of logic. He just thinks that. Look, he's the same. He has the same view about propositions. He doesn't think that propositions exist, right?
How can they? How
But
can
it doesn't.
propositions be
That
true or
doesn't.
false if something
That's a
non-existent is
true
true or false?
Look,
contradiction.
I don't even understand. I
What
don't
does
even
it
understand what
mean?
the
What does it mean to say something that doesn't
look. I
exist
don't
is
even
true or
understand
false?
what the confusion. I don't even understand what the confusion is, right? Like just for a second.
Explain what
What
it
does it mean
means.
for a tree? Sorry, stop interrupting me. I'm not gonna have this fucking conversation with you if you keep fucking
I was
interrupting
talking to
me.
Matt
So
anyway. You
stop.
jumped in.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I was pointing out that all the things that
Okay, so explain
that
what it
Matt said
means.
were already addressed. Look, I'm not even. I don't know why you have this view that saying something, a proposition is true, commits one to the ontology of propositions. I don't know why anybody would say that, but let's just take for the sake of argument that you think that a necessary condition for something's being true or false is that it exists. But then that would mean it could mean something, hypothetically, it could mean something for a tree to be true, not just propositions, for things that exist in the
I
world.
don't understand. I don't understand what the fuck you're saying. A tree to be true? I don't
Yeah,
know what
you're
it would
saying,
mean for a tree to be true.
yeah, neither do I. But the same, when you take the whole point is that if you take propositions as extant objects, then it's not going to be as if there's a distinction between that and what a tree is, right? You're just saying some other class of object, in this case an abstract object, is true. So no mystery is cleared up by saying that something exists.
Look, I'm not following. What does it mean to say a proposition is true or false if a propositions don't exist? How can a non-existent thing be true or
How
false?
can an existent thing be true or false? How does either way answer that question satisfactorily? And now if you're
Because
just saying you
truth
don't
is that which
understand the concept,
corresponds to reality, and reality is everything that exists.
what does it mean for look, I just don't even understand when you
I don't
say a
understand what
proposition.
you're
So look,
saying.
okay, right, so in your view,
How can something
something like
correspond to
uniforms.
reality if it doesn't exist, sir?
Look, I don't even know what it means what does it mean to correspond to reality? That's just a weird
Is that not your definition of
that's
truth?
just
What's your definition of truth?
I don't want to talk about definitions of truth with you. It's not
Oh, he's
interesting
running away.
because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether or not, look, a coherentist and a pragmatist and a found-herentist and a correspondence theorist, they all agree on what propositions are true or not, right? So I don't see what difference it makes.
If they're saying that truth isn't that which corresponds to reality, if they're using some other sense of true, what is it?
Well, I don't, look, even if you
I just got a back channel
grant,
message from Dr. Poca
even
Pro.
if
He
you
said he'll
grant the
clean this up if y'all
correspondence
bring him
theory,
up.
look, even if you grant
Matt,
the
shush.
correspondence theory of truth, whatever the fuck that is supposed to mean, because it's not even clear what it means for a
What's
proposition
true? What is your
to
definition of true?
correspond. I'm not I'm not discussing that right now. I'm addressing something that you
Look,
said.
you're the one that's supposed to, because I guess I'm conceptually impoverished over what it means for
Look, I'm
something
not
to
gonna look.
be true
Why
that
are you
doesn't
doing this?
exist.
Why are you doing this?
I
I don't
was talking to
understand why you're
Matt
doing
and you
this.
came in and interrupted our conversation.
Yeah, I didn't. It's not like I interrupted what you were saying, though. I didn't stop you from talking. I'm not. I didn't stop you from making salient points or whatever. I pointed out that everything that you said and that was addressed in that recording, everything that Matt said was addressed in that recording. And if you don't understand it, you should
I
talk
did
to
not
Detroyer.
hear Detroyer explain how he can use something that he doesn't have a concept of and something that doesn't exist. Do you understand what that means? Maybe I'm just conceptually impoverished. Do you understand what it means to use something that doesn't exist and you have no conception of? What does that mean?
Well, look, the whole point we already
Watch him
addressed
fail to explain what it means.
when you said exist. How are you using the term?
Exist? What? How? What? Can you give a definition
Right,
of
the
exist?
same
Exist is
way.
irreducible. You've told me that
Well,
yourself
if it's
before. All I can
irreducible,
do
if
with the
it's
word exist is provide synonyms. Can you do anything other than provide synonyms for the word exist?
look, whether or not one
What's your
can do that
definition of
is
existence, Josh?
Why do you keep fucking interrupting me? Why? Tell me why you keep fucking doing that.
Because you're
Why
dodging.
do you keep
You're
doing that when
dodging the
I'm trying to
questions.
explain? Why do you keep interrupting me when I'm trying to explain why you're wrong?
I'm asking you to explain what it means, and you keep dodging.
I'm not gonna I know I was going to explain. So first of all, I was going to explain why the question you're asking is confused, right? But you won't let me do that. You keep fucking interrupting. Why? Detroyer's here. Ask fucking Detroyer.
Well, if you understand his view, which I thought you told me you didn't, then you could just explain it.
Look, I'm saying he's just gonna give a nominalist account, but whether or not I understand his view is irrelevant to the question of whether or not he satisfactorily responded to whatever fucking Matt was saying or whatever you're saying now.
Oh, guys, that's what
So
we're doing.
Detroyer,
And I would say
Josh,
that's a big no.
Josh is saying that you didn't really mean that logic doesn't exist, that you do think it exists in some sense. But wait,
Yeah.
well, I have to make one last point to Josh. I think it was very dishonest of you to ask me for a definition of existence when you agree with me. I know you agree with me that existence cannot be defined.
Look, you were the one that
I
pointed out
think
that
that
there
was
were
very
different
dishonest of
senses
you.
of
Do you disagree
existence.
that that was
You were the
dishonest?
one, no, you were the one who pointed out that there were different senses of
No,
exist,
you
right?
you
You
claimed
said that.
that. You said that Detroyer does
Look,
believe in some sense logic existed. He didn't really
no,
mean.
you asked the question if there was some sense in which because I gave an example. I gave an analogy, right? And you signed off that analogy, whatever exists meant in that analogy, like we have some processes in place that do X or whatever, right? That you granted that was different, whatever the sense was, that was different from the sense in which, oh, the chair in this room exists, right? You granted that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Fine. Is my audio working? Can you hear me? Detroit, you there?
So existence has a definition.
That doesn't matter though.
Now, Godless said that existence cannot be defined.
Let's hear from Detroyer the cause of this dispute.
Look, Detroit. All I
Go ahead.
was trying to say. Tell me if I get your view wrong, right? But you're saying, in the same sense, you're saying that you would nominalize away things like concepts, just the same way you would nominalize away things like logic or whatever. And if the sense in which exists we're using, you're saying we use maybe reference is the wrong term, but we use these concepts in our linguistic patterns or whatever, then in that sense you might say that they exist, right? That we have some sort of linguistic usage of these terms or something like that, right? But when they pick out like actual properties or objects in the world, you're saying that that's not the case, right? Propositions aren't actually objects in the world, neither are things like concepts. And so in that sense,
So
the
Matt,
world
now
exists.
he's trying to get Detroyer to backpedal and
I'm
be like, no,
asking
I didn't really mean
Detroyer
it
if
doesn't exist. Logic
I'm
doesn't
asking
exist. I
Detroyer,
just meant that they're not.
I'm asking Detroyer if I got his view right. He's free to say no. Detroyer, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
No, I can barely fucking hear you. What the fuck? Fix your
No.
mic.
Oh no.
This app is unusable for me when I'm on mobile.
Fucking don't
We
use your
can't hear you
headset,
all,
bro. Just
Detroyer.
fucking unplug the headset.
Okay, I'll unplug the headset. Can you hear me now?
Leave and come back.
Matt, he's trying to get Detroyer to backpedal.
Can you hear me now?
No.
No, you gotta leave and come back, bro.
No.
Leave and come back.
Okay.
Is he? Can you
He's
not
gonna
just
get
talk into his
Detroyer to say,
phone?
no, I didn't mean to say logic doesn't exist. It does exist in some sense. That's what he's
Hello?
gonna try to get him to say.
Hello?
Yeah,
Perfect.
much better.
Yeah, okay. I'm not using my headphones at all right now. Yeah, no, I don't think that there are things like propositions, be they logical propositions or otherwise. So I don't think those things exist. There aren't any such things. And of course, I can make statements that I think are true regarding logic. There are no two true statements that contradict each other, something like that. But I don't think that requires commitment to there being propositions or logic in some sense. I don't know. I thought I made this clear in the initial discussion.
Well, do they exist as ideas or not?
There are no such things. So I don't
There's no such
want
thing
to.
as ideas.
No, you said, do they exist as ideas? And I'm saying they don't
Yeah.
exist. There are no such things.
So P and not P,
Do they
or the
exist in
law
any
of
sense?
non-contradiction, is not an idea that exists.
Do they exist in any sense? They're not
Do they have
things,
any
on my view.
being?
So I don't know if you mean exist in some very different way.
Well, Josh gave
But
some analogy where I guess they would exist in some sense or something like that, he said.
what was the analogy?
Well, I said process. I gave an example of processes, right? Like that's the sort of standard nominalist example. When you talk about a process, you can say things like, I have a process, but it doesn't mean that you have an object that's called a process that you refer to when you use the term process, something like that,
Yeah, so I mean
right?
that's not what I'm saying here, but that's also correct. Like, I could say it's true that I'm running, but false that there is this like entity running, right? That would be correct, but I'm not saying that here either. I'm not saying that propositions are like processes or something. I'm not saying that there are
So,
any such things.
can you use things that don't exist?
You can't.
Well, like, look, I think the point that I was trying to make, running is a good example. Use that example, right? Because